Welcome back to Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. My name is Reika and I am your host. So today's podcast episode is all about celebrating 100th episode on Full-Time Yoga Teacher Podcast. And to celebrate this 100th episodes, I decided to do a video solo episode chat. So if you're watching on the video, hi, nice to see you all. As you can see in the background is my yoga space. This is where I record and teach online yoga classes from. And I have decorated with a mini Christmas tree that really brings me joy. So I hope you're enjoying this season as well. So if you're new to this podcast, my name is Reika and I am your host. And this Full-Time Yoga Teacher podcast was started almost 2 years ago. And I started this podcast because I wanted to interview other full-time yoga teachers across the world to hear about their journey. And I just reached 100th episode of this podcast, and I'm almost about to hit 2-year point of this podcast as well, which is a huge milestone for me because when I started this podcast 2 years ago, I promised myself that I'm going to release one episode every week, every Monday for a year. So that was my goal, and I did reach that goal. And then once I got to 1-year goal, I told myself I'm going to make it to 100th episode, releasing every single week. And I reached that goal last week, and now I am at the point where I'm saying I'm going to hit my 2-year mark on this podcast. So the 2-year mark is coming up soon. So end of December. Right now I'm recording in December 2025. End of December will be the 2-year mark since I started in January 2 years ago. So I have a tendency to really commit when I really commit. When I commit to something, project or a job or a goal, I'm pretty consistent and committed to it. So that's kind of what I wanted to share on this week's podcast. It's a solo episode all about what I learned in this 100th episode of producing this podcast for the last 2 years. Some highs and some lows, some wins and some, I wouldn't say losses, but maybe where I still want to go towards. I think that's a better way to frame it. So before we get started on today's episode of where I'm going to be talking about all about my experience and journey of running this podcast, I have one announcement to make today. The announcement is that mentorship program for yoga teachers application for 2026 is now open. So I'll put the link on the show notes where you can click the link and it'll take you to my mentorship page on my website. You can read all about it. You can hit the button to apply for the mentorship if you're interested. The mentorship program is probably one of my favorite offerings that I have. We are this community of yoga teachers. A lot of us are from Southern California, but I do have students from other states, other time zones, and other countries joining as well. We meet mostly online on Zoom, but we do have once a month in-person workshop that happens that is also live streamed online on Zoom for people who live in another location who can't join live. And all the meetings are recorded and the recordings are available on the library. So you can access and watch the recording from the meeting you have missed if you couldn't be there live, or you can also get the access to the meetings and a workshop from the past 5 years of me running this mentorship program. There's a lot of great resources on the on-demand library. So once you join, you get access to all the past recordings as well. So what is included in the mentorship, you might be asking? This is for yoga teachers or soon-to-be yoga teachers. It's like a continuing education community, and you almost get this family of yoga teachers who's so supportive and who want to learn and grow with you, but who's also want to celebrate your wins and who want to support you and see you do well in whatever goals and path you're on. So we meet once a month for yoga philosophy discussions where I lead a discussion on a specific yoga sutra typically. And sometimes we'll expand into different type of philosophy, but most of the time we are learning about yoga sutras of Patanjali. We do discussion, we do Q&A sessions. We also have once a month pranayama and meditation class. And these are all happening on Zoom, live stream, but also recorded. We also have 101 that you can sign up to talk with me. And you get to sign up for one one-on-one session per module, and one module is 4 months long. So that's a container. When you sign up, you are in this 4-month container. And you have one one-on-one session you can sign up with me. And then we can meet on Zoom, or if you live nearby and want to meet in person, we can also meet in person. One-on-one is a time you get to ask me any specific questions about whatever you're going through at the moment, or any specific question you might have, or any goals that you have that you want to discuss, or ideas that you want to bounce your ideas around. We also have a yoga book club that we meet once a month. This is on Zoom as well. We choose one book per module, and we go slow. So we read one book over the course of 4 months, and we meet once a month to discuss this, whatever sections we're agreed to read upon. And this is all the ways you can get involved in the mentorship program and be part of the community, but always everything is optional and you can watch the recording later. We also have once a month guest teachers workshop or special topic workshop. And a lot of time I bring in guest teachers with a specific expertise or skill sets to teach about their expertise. And for example, in the past, we had a physical therapist and a yoga teacher come and teach a workshop on hypermobility or teaching yoga for aging population. We also had somebody come and teach us a workshop on intentional sequencing. We had a workshop on handstand. We had a workshop on back bending. We had a workshop on student-teacher relationship and boundaries. So we also had a workshop on teaching private yoga, which was really fun too. Yoga and nervous system. So amazing teachers I get to bring on that I also want to learn from, as well as I want to share their teachings to the people in the mentorship program. So all of these are included. So this is monthly meeting we have for 4 months in the module. And the cost of the module is $180 for 4 months, meaning it's $45 a month. Super accessible, and I tried really hard to make this mentorship program accessible and available to anyone who wants to join. I know that sometimes being a yoga teacher is not easy, especially financially, and I understand that myself fully because I've been full-time teaching yoga for almost 10 years. So I understand that. So I try to make the price point accessible, $45 a month. But if you still need a work trade or scholarship or something like that for anybody who wants to join, but who might feel hesitant due to the financial situation, you can always message me and I offer work trade opportunities as well. So I really love my community in the mentorship program, not only for yoga teachers who want to learn and deepen their continuing education, but I really believe in guiding yoga teachers to live a life that is in alignment with yogic philosophy and principles. And I think that's probably by far the most important skill set and community to have so we can be on this path together and you don't have to feel alone in this path. So that is a mentorship program. I'll put all the information on the show notes. So if you need to click on the link, go check out the website, go apply. If you have questions, you can always message me. So that is it for the announcement. So let's get started on today's topic. So this is an episode to celebrate 100 podcast episodes that I have released and what I have learned from these 100 episodes. And I want to kind of break this episode into 2 sections. First section is the behind the scenes and reality and the business side and admin side of what it takes to be hosting, releasing, recording, promoting podcasts. And that's the first half. And then second half is like what I have learned from speaking to so many yoga teachers in the last 2 years. So that's more of like what I have learned, what are some insights I have gained, some commonalities I have seen and heard from talking to yoga teachers in the past 2 years. Even though it's 100 episodes that I have released, actual number of yoga teachers I have interviewed so far is 65 interviews, 65 yoga teachers that I got to interview. Because I do bring in repeat guests as well as I have done small mini series that is a little bit more geared towards continuing education for yoga teachers. So in total, I have interviewed 65 yoga teachers, and I'm feeling like my next milestone would be I want to interview 100 yoga teachers. I still have a little bit more to go. So if you have any yoga teachers you want me to interview, if you have somebody you recommend, request, or you have somebody you want to connect me to, please message me. I'm always looking for an amazing, inspiring yoga teachers to interview for this podcast. Okay, so let's get started with what I learned in the past 2 years releasing 100 episodes on this podcast. So let's talk about the behind the scene and maybe the reality, the business side of podcasting. Number one, the growth is often really slow and gradual. It's not overnight. So there's not really algorithm recommending people to listen to my podcast. Maybe Spotify does that a little bit. I'm not sure, but I have to do all the promotion. I have to let everybody know in my newsletter, in my circle, in my students, the people I meet and I speak to that I have a podcast, and go check it out. And also the guests that I get to interview will most of the time share their podcast with their community. The growth is slow. For me, there's no overnight success in my podcasting. It's been a slow, gradual growth. And that is okay. I think that's kind of the reality for a lot of things, even running your own business or even just teaching yoga. It's a slow, gradual growth. You're not going to have hundreds of students waiting to take your class right away when you first become a yoga teacher. It just takes time to grow and build your community. So same thing, podcasting, it's a slow, gradual grow. And I think it's important to start with clear plan and vision for the podcast. I didn't really have this. My only desire for starting this podcast was I thought it would be really cool to be able to interview full-time yoga teachers from across the world and hear about their journey of how they became full-time and how are they sustaining themselves as a full-time yoga teacher. Just because that was an interesting topic for me. It's something I wish I had when I was starting out as a full-time yoga teacher. I wanted to speak to more full-time yoga teachers and kind of hear their stories to see if it's possible. Is it realistic? And that's kind of the reason and urge behind why I started this podcast. But I think if you are thinking of starting a podcast, I think it's good to think about your target audience. Who are you trying to reach? And how is that going to transfer to your goal? If you have a goal in your podcasting, like maybe you want to build your newsletter list, or maybe you want more people to sign up for your online yoga studio, or more people to show up to your online yoga events, those kind of things. I think it's good to have what is the intention and goal and who is your targeted audience and how are you going to link the podcast into your goal. I think is an important or a good thing to think about before starting. And also knowing clearly what is your reason why for doing this podcast. Like I said, I'm not a great example for doing all of this before starting the podcast, but I think in general, my reason why was I wanted to learn from other full-time yoga teachers, and I wanted to share that with other yoga teachers out there in the world because I really thought I wasn't the only one who was thinking this. I wasn't the only one who was curious about this. So that was my reason why. Does it really relate to growing my business, growing my online yoga business as a yoga teacher as a whole? Possibly, maybe. I didn't really have a clear plan to link those two. And that's something I think I could definitely work on. And maybe asking yourself, what am I hoping to gain from this podcast? Is it a connection with other teachers you get to interview? Is it connection with your listeners? Are you trying to grow something like your business, your newsletters, your reach, your exposure? Is it visibility? Are you trying to earn some income from this podcast? I think all of these questions are important to ask before starting. I did kind of have these ideas, but I didn't really have a clear vision when I started. I still don't, but obviously I want to be able to link the podcast into my business. It'll be wonderful if I can grow my business as I continue to release my podcasts. Has it happened? I'm not sure yet because I haven't personally had a clear correlation or link of me growing my business from podcasts. For example, I haven't received a client who was a podcast listener, or I haven't had anybody that I personally don't know who signed up to be part of my online studio or my mentorship who were a podcast listener. Like a lot of people that join my online studio, come to my classes or workshop, or join my mentorship are people that I personally know or have met in the past. So I haven't really had just a random podcast listeners join my community. But I would love that. I would love if that can translate to one another. I do get to promote my own offerings on my podcast because it's my podcast. But have I seen a direct correlation of that turning into a sale? I'm not sure. And that's me consistently releasing this episode weekly, and I still haven't really seen the direct correlation. So that's something to think about if you're planning to start a podcast and if that is your goal. The thing that is important to know, and what I learned, is that podcasting is really, really time consuming. You record, interview, or a solo episode that can take an hour or longer. Sometimes you go back and forth with the guest trying to find a time that works, or if they have questions about podcasts. So you go back and forth. The scheduling happens for the podcast, and actual interviewing time takes time. And then editing. So editing, if the interview was 1 hour long, editing is probably going to take 1.5 to 2 hours. And after the editing, you have to release that episode or publish the episode. So that takes a while because you have to write like a title, descriptions, link on the show notes, and then promoting. So making promotion on social media, posting, scheduling, making a newsletter, Instagram stories to promote it. And there's so many other ways to promote. You can use YouTube, you can use TikTok, you can use Pinterest to promote, blog posts to promote. And I just don't have time for all of those things. If I had an assistant, maybe they could do that job for me. But for me right now, I just have enough time to post on my website for each episode. I let my newsletter know about my podcast episode that's coming out. I make Instagram reels and Instagram stories to let people know about the podcast episodes, and that's about it. I know there's hundreds of other things I can do, but I just don't have time in my daily life to do all of that. And even if I did have time, I don't know if I want to, because that just means I'm constantly working. So it's a very, very, very time consuming labor of love. There's many hours of unpaid work in podcasting unless you're a big podcaster and you have sponsors and affiliate code and people paying you to do a podcast. I don't have any of that. So most of my work, or I would probably say 100% of my work, is unpaid work, and it takes hours and hours behind the scene. So that's something to really think about if you're thinking about starting a podcast. There are ways to make money from podcasting, but if you are a small podcast, it's hard to earn any income from that. And I think you really have to do it because you love it. If I didn't love what I'm doing on this podcast, obviously I wouldn't have made it to 100 episodes, and I wouldn't have done it for 2 years. Obviously, I'm a little bit stubborn, and when I commit, I really commit. And I really believe steady and slow, consistent work is going to get you somewhere. So even if I haven't really seen a return of this podcast so much, I really do believe that it's making some kind of positive impact in the world, or maybe it's building bricks for my business in the future. Who knows? It has yet to come out, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. Another interesting thing I learned is that sometimes the podcast interview that I really, really loved doing and speaking and conversing with the guests don't do so well. And then some of the interviews that I didn't love as much, or it wasn't as fun for me to record, gets a lot of good feedback. So it's interesting how that works. I have gotten a lot of positive reinforcement from some of the podcast interviews I've done, but that podcast interview was probably one of my least favorite podcast interview that I've done. So you just never know what I feel is going to be the same kind of feedback I'm going to get from the listeners. So it's always, you just got to keep going, keep trying what works and what doesn't work. And another thing is podcasting, it can be kind of lonely because you are recording and editing and promoting and doing all the back end stuff pretty much alone. When you're interviewing a guest, that's the moment that you are with one more person, but most of the work is done alone. And you're just like speaking into the microphone and hoping somebody's listening to you on the other side. And you just don't know who's listening. You don't know if they're enjoying it. And for me, in my small podcast, I don't get a lot of comments on Spotify. So I don't even know if anybody's listening. I don't even know if they're enjoying it. I do see the numbers on the analytics, but numbers are really hard to imagine that is another person listening on the other side, especially because I don't hear a lot of feedback. People I know, my friends or my students might say, "Oh, I really enjoyed that episode." And that's super, super rewarding. And I really love hearing feedback from anybody who listens to my podcast. But most of the time, I don't hear anything. So it does kind of feel like I'm just speaking out into a void and hoping somebody's listening. So if you're listening and you're enjoying it, or you have some thoughts or feedback, like I always say, please leave me a comment or you can message me. I really love hearing from people who's listening from anywhere in the world, just so it feels like a little bit more two-way communication rather than one-way communication. But yeah, most of the time it's kind of a lonely thing. But in the end, after saying all of that, there is a reason why I continued for 2 years and continued all the way to 100 episodes. So that's 100 weeks in a row that I have not skipped, is because I believe in the reason why I want to do this podcast. And I love speaking to other yoga teachers. I love sharing their stories. I learn so much from hearing their stories. I get inspired by the people I get to interview. And how often do you get to have 1 hour of in-depth conversation about yoga and yoga journey and yoga business and what they feel passionate about in yoga with other fellow yoga lovers? So that's a gift for sure. And like I said, this is a resources and information I wanted to know when I was starting out as a yoga teacher. And I still want to know even now, 10 years into being a full-time yoga teacher. So there's definitely this strong reason why I continue to show up to do this. But I do think about how can I continue to show up in a more sustainable way. So I don't know, maybe it may look a little bit different in the future, but I do plan to continue this podcast. If anybody have any ideas, thoughts, feedback, advice, I'm always open to hear your thoughts. So like I said earlier, I love feedback. Message me, comments. So I feel I'm also in a two-way communication with listeners. So that kind of brings me to the second section of this solo conversation. And the second part is, what are some wisdoms and inspirations and things that I've learned from interviewing 65 yoga teachers on my podcast? What are some common threads from all of those teachers from all over the world that I've learned in this 100 episodes? But 100 episodes, but 65 yoga teachers that I got to interview. So number one, every teacher's path is different and unique. And I think that is the beauty of it. There's no one magic formula for being a full-time yoga teacher. It's going to look different for different teachers. It's going to be a different whiny road for different teachers. And that is okay. That is normal. And that is a beauty of it. There's no one right way to be a full-time yoga teacher, and there's no one right way to build a yoga career. Some of the people I interviewed built their full-time yoga teaching career from solely on private yoga teaching. Some people solely on online yoga studio or online yoga teaching. Some people only in-person yoga teaching. Some people are behind the scene people, maybe making websites, doing the promotion in the back end for yoga teachers. Some people are yoga studio managers. So there's just so many different paths and there's no wrong right way. And I think that's what I really love about these conversations that I had with yoga teachers. And another part is not many of them do this alone, solely alone. A lot of people had help along the way, like maybe they share rent with their partner. Maybe they have extra income or inheritance or a little bit of cushion from the previous career that they could use to help them get on their feet as a full-time yoga teacher, different part-time jobs. So I feel like 100% fully full-time yoga teacher where all of your income is coming in from being a yoga teacher and you don't need anyone else's help. It's possible, but not many teachers are doing that or have built their career that way. A lot of people had some kind of help from others or maybe their own, savings, inheritance, or whatever help assistance they could get. And another thing I learned is the importance of being adaptable and flexible. Especially this became clear during the pandemic. A lot of teachers had to stop teaching or go online during the pandemic, and some people refused that. Some people embrace that. So being adaptable, time is changing. Pandemic has happened and now it's over, but the yoga world has changed. Right now, what's popular is hybrid classes like yoga with weights, yoga, Pilates, yoga with resistance bands, yoga and myofascial release, yoga and mobility. Can we adapt with the change in the yoga world? I think it's beautiful to reminisce and respect the tradition and how things used to be. Not even tradition, but like maybe how things used to be 10 years ago, but also being open to change and open to try something new. Obviously, you want to still feel in alignment with who you are as a teacher. You don't want to do anything that you feel very conflicted, but I think it's also important to have open mind and being adaptable. And I think being consistent matters more than trying to be perfect. A lot of time, if you have a perfectionist tendency, it's hard to start something new because you want to wait until it's perfect and 100% ready before you start. But it's so important to just start and just improve as you go. That's coming from me, I think. I mean, I've heard other teachers talk about this too, but I started my online yoga studio. I started this podcast. I started teaching yoga as very, very imperfect self. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't have all the right equipment. I didn't have all the right knowledge, but you just start where you are and being humble and honest with where you are. And then you can always keep improving, evolving as you go. But you're going to be so thankful you started when you weren't ready rather than wait until you were ready to start, because it could take a year, 2 years, 10, 20 years before you feel like you're ready. Or you may never feel ready. So might as well start before you're ready. Another common thread I've realized from interviewing this many yoga teachers is that group yoga classes is not enough to have a long-term sustainable career as a yoga teacher. Almost everybody said this. Teaching just group yoga classes means you have to teach a lot of group yoga classes to make enough to live. Even then, it's not enough. Like I was teaching 28 classes a week and subbing. So some weeks more than 30 classes that I taught. And I was making less money than I do now. So like you could teach so many group classes and it's going to exhaust you and it's not sustainable. And there's going to be like a limit to how many classes you can teach per week because there's limited time in a day. So the answer is not about teaching more group classes. And that's where it gets really interesting of how uniquely different yoga teachers found their path. Some decided to teach group classes and workshop and trainings. Some teachers decided to teach group classes and online courses, sell online class series. or maybe they started running retreats, or they decide to become a yoga studio manager and a teacher. So these are the different ways yoga teachers got creative to make it work and also to become sustainable as a yoga teacher, because just teaching more and more and more group classes is not the answer. It's just not sustainable. So that's kind of where it leads to the importance of diversifying your income streams as yoga teacher. And this could mean, like I said, group classes, online studio, online classes, online workshop, online class series, leading a retreat, leading a yoga teacher training, or getting another part-time job that might not be related to yoga, or maybe working at a front desk at a yoga studio, managing a studio. There's so many avenues you can take. Some teachers teach Pilates, and some teachers become massage therapists. Some teacher becomes a business coach. Some teachers become a Reiki healer. There's like so many different ways that you can diversify your income streams. As a yoga teacher, yoga does not have to be the only thing you do. And I don't think we should look down upon on that, especially if you are doing something outside of yoga. Maybe you have another part-time job at a coffee shop, at a restaurant, at a bar. Maybe you work office job as a part-time. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing that makes you less than if you're a part-time teacher versus full-time teacher. That's a number one myth that I want to bust. Because this podcast is called Full-Time Yoga Teacher, I feel like maybe I'm sending out a message that being a full-time yoga teacher is a better path, or a path that all yoga teachers should be on. And that's not true. That's not what I'm trying to advocate at all. This is just a path that I have been on in the past 10 years. And I was just curious about other people who also been on this path. But if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I've interviewed yoga teachers who have other part-time jobs, who actually became full-time and became part-time and back to full-time, or who was a full-time yoga teacher who completely left the yoga teaching world and became an occupational therapist, or became a physical therapist, or somebody who doesn't really teach anymore and does more of the business side, or mentoring yoga teachers who want to be successful in this world. So there's no one path that I'm trying to promote. I'm more trying to promote there's so many paths, and I want you to find your own unique path that works for you, that is fulfilling for you. I think that's an important message for me. And another interesting common thread I've learned from interviewing many yoga teachers is that almost everybody I interviewed went through a burnout or something similar to it. A lot of teachers have gone through teaching too many classes, working too many hours, exhausting themselves, getting injured along the way, driving from one place to the next, sitting in traffic to get from one private to the next studio. And many, many, many yoga teachers I've spoken to have experienced burnout. And that is usually a tipping point where a yoga teacher realizes they need to diversify their income stream so that they're not overworking themselves to a burnout. It would be nice if we didn't have to go through that to realize that. So hopefully this podcast can be helpful for anybody who might be on that trajectory to burnout, or maybe already experienced burnout by teaching so many group classes. Just know that this is not the only path. I encourage you to, maybe there's like time and space during your teaching career to work really hard to get your name out there, but it's not a long-term sustainable solution. So I hope teachers didn't have to go through the burnout to realize it. But hopefully listening to these conversations I had with you, different yoga teachers, can give you ideas on what else you can do. Another common thread I've learned from interviewing yoga teachers is that all of us do it because we love it. All of us do it because we love yoga so much. We gain so much from it, and we really want to share that with others. We do it from this beautiful heart-centered place that we really love it and we really want others to gain the benefit from yoga or this teachings. That is very heartwarming. A lot of us are not doing it to become rich. I mean, it'll be great if we can make a lot of money from it. But if the reason why you became a yoga teacher is to be rich, like there's so many other professions you could choose otherwise that's going to help you earn more money than being a yoga teacher. So everybody who's a yoga teacher want to be in this profession because we care. We love yoga and we want to share it with others. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So otherwise we wouldn't stayed in this profession. So that's something very, very heartwarming for me. And I think all of us can agree, even from listening to this interview, is that we realize that teaching yoga is a very undervalued profession. We don't get sick days. We don't get paid holidays. We don't get 401k. We don't get health insurance. And sometimes we don't get the respect and we don't feel valued from society for being a yoga teacher. So that's another common thread I feel like I've heard many teachers talk about. And like I said, I've interviewed people who left the industry, and many of the reasons why they left was because they wanted more of a security in their career path, and teaching yoga wasn't providing a security that they wanted. And a lot of teachers I spoke to, like I said earlier, they stepped back from teaching. They became full-time from part-time teaching. They got another job. They changed direction. They changed their focus. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's so important for us not to see that as a failure, but a stepping stone towards a life that is more in alignment with who we are and life that is sustainable and fulfilling for us. And longer you stay in the profession, you'll probably know that your interests grow and change as well. So I think it's okay to pivot. I think it's okay to change direction or evolve and adapt towards another path, another direction. For example, some people were full-time yoga teachers and they realize they love helping other yoga teachers in the business. So they become a business coach. Some people became more interested in Pilates and became a Pilates teacher and they teach more Pilates than yoga now. Or they were interested in learning about the physical body and wanted to become a PT or OT. Some people decided they wanted to become a social worker or psychotherapist, and evolving into another profession, another focus, I think is also completely okay. And what a beautiful path that yoga have taken you to lead you closer to something that is more in alignment with who you are and that is fulfilling. So I think that's beautiful. And I, for myself, see myself and my interests changing. I am a lot more interested in strength training and therapeutic PT work. And I'm way more interested in yoga philosophy and studying yoga philosophy and Buddhism more than, for example, learning about sequencing or learning about triangle poses, which those are all interesting too. But I am being pulled towards certain area that I'm interested in, and I kind of want to follow that interest and see where it takes me. And that doesn't mean I'm leaving yoga behind. It could mean that I could combine different modalities. It could mean that one modalities can become a stepping stone to evolve into the next thing. And I think that's beautiful because I think it's so important for yoga teachers to continue learning, and we don't want to ever stop learning. And as we continue learning, I'm sure this learning path is going to take us to another avenue. And I think that's wonderful, and keep following that interest. Another trend that I'm noticing, not specifically from interviewing all the yoga teachers, but what I'm noticing being part of the yoga industry for the time that I have been part of it, is that yoga industry is changing. Obviously, pandemic contributed to a big change in the yoga world. Yoga world is changing. And I think if you've been part of it, you probably have felt it and seen it. And many of you listening are probably been part of the yoga world for way longer than me, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And you probably have seen so many changes. But what I have noticed myself is that fitness is in. Pilates is in and yoga is not as popular as it used to be. There's less like diehard yoga practitioner and more people are going to the gym, taking spin class, taking HIIT class, running, and yoga is part of their movement diet, not so much the only movement practice that they do. So that trend is kind of leading to boutique gyms and fitness studio that is offering so many things. And those are the places that's doing well. For example, a fitness gym that has Pilates reformer, yoga lattes, weightlifting class, maybe rock climbing class, and sauna and HIIT class, and then yoga. And you get access to all of those classes under one membership. Those are the places I think are doing well right now. There are not many places that I know here in my Southern California bubble that I'm in that is only yoga, that is purely just yoga studio. It's still out there, but there aren't many. And I think it's hard to survive as a studio or yoga school if that is the only thing you're offering. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think it's possible, but I think it's a little bit more challenging. Which leads to, I think there are less and less full-time yoga teachers now. Many of them have other skill sets and other things that they do, other work that they have to supplement teaching yoga. And that kind of lead me to a topic of my own interest lately is yoga teachers that are popular versus yoga teachers who actually teach a skill set or a technique or have expertise to share. You can be both of those things, but if you're not both, if you're not popular and have a skill and expertise, what I've seen in the yoga world and I guess movement world, what is being valued right now is being popular, whether that's popular on social media or popular in person. Your classes are packed and waitlisted. Those are the teachers that obviously bring in money for studios and gyms. So those are the teachers that business owner wants. Those are the teachers that make money for the studio. And maybe not always those are the teachers who actually bring experience and wisdoms and expertise and actually teach technique in yoga. I'm not saying all. Some people are both. Some people are one or other. But you are going to be rewarded by the capitalistic world if you're popular. That's when you are going to get classes offered. You might get easier time getting a raise. You get a better time slot. People going to want you to work for them. Sometimes that doesn't always translate to teachers with amazing skill sets, education, and expertise to share. That is kind of leading to another topic of my interest is teacherless teachers. And I recently saw a Instagram reel of somebody talking about the modern yoga world is full of teacherless teachers. And that is also another trend I'm seeing is that I think a lot of teachers these days don't really know the lineage of their yoga teachers, who was their teachers' teachers and their teachers' teachers, and what lineage does their yoga come from. I think that is definitely missing or becoming less in the yoga world. And maybe I'm an old school in this way, but I do really believe in the value of teachers, having teachers and having mentors who has a very strong foundation and traditions behind them and who's also willing to learn and adapt as well. But I really see the value in knowing your lineage, where your teachers learned from, who they learned from, what lineage their yoga come from. And maybe it's a blend of different lineages, and that is okay too. But I think it's important for us to know our teachers, have teachers and mentors in our life, and being open to adapt and learn and grow, but also having this strong foundation and tribute and respect to where we came from, where yoga came from, and the tradition that it comes from. So that is my thoughts. I think this will be a really cool topic to talk about with a guest in the future. So if this is something you're interested in, let me know. As well as if you have somebody you want me to bring on to talk about these topics, please let me know as well. And lastly, success looks different for everybody. Everybody defines success differently. There's no one metric that I want you to use or I should use to measure my success as a yoga teacher or your success as being a yoga teacher or success for running this podcast or success metric for running an online yoga studio or your yoga business. Everyone's metrics for success is different. So I want you to find what is yours and think about holistically, not just numbers or income or profit, but what does it mean to be successful? And can we have a little bit more broader perspective on this definition of success so you can really celebrate even the smallest wins, not always tied to numbers and metrics and analytics. I want to say that full-time yoga teacher is not the path for everybody. It may not be the path for me forever. I may change. I may adapt. I may grow into something else. And I want to say that is completely okay. And that is a beautiful thing. I hope by releasing these podcast episodes and interviews, I'm not promoting that everybody should be a full-time teacher, but sharing how challenging it can be. It's not easy. It's not an easy path for all, but it is a possible path. I do want to say it is possible. I have been doing it for a while. Other teachers I interviewed have been doing it for a while. So it is a possible path, but it might not be what you imagine it would be like or how you might have idealized it in your head. And I hope this podcast can be a resource for you, whether you are full-time, part-time, wanting to be a full-time or not. And I hope you take care of yourself, have healthy boundaries. I hope you continue to take care of yourself so you can continue to pour and give and share the gift of yoga to your students and other people in your life. And I hope everyone listening can find a path, a career, a job that is supportive to you, that is fulfilling to you, that you feel like it is in alignment with your inner light, your Prusha, the yoga philosophy would say. So that is it from me today. I hope you enjoyed this solo episode format of all the things I've learned along the way of running and producing this podcast for the last 2 years and also celebrating 100th episode of the podcast. Like always, if you would like to reach me, you can always message me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. My handle is at Reika Yoga, ReikaYoga. You can message me on my website, www.reikayoga.com. I love to hear from you listeners, so you can always leave me a star, reviews, subscribe, download, whatever way you can support me on whatever platform you listen to this podcast would mean a world to me. But most importantly, share this podcast with somebody you love, your friends, your yoga teachers, your community. That would mean a lot to me. Like I said, I would love to have you join my mentorship program for yoga teachers starting in January of 2026. Any questions you may have, you can message me or check out the link on the show notes to apply. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day and talk to you soon.